Welcome back to Teach Me the Bible Stories with Miss Michelle. Today we will look at Esther chapters 2 through 10, where God takes man's evil plans and turns them completely around. There will be 10 questions at the end. You can earn 100 points. But first, the books of the Bible. Let's review the books of Old Testament and remember the ASL signs that we are using. The Old Testament has 5 books of law. Genesis, begin. Exodus, exit. Leviticus, priest. Numbers, count. Deuteronomy, repeat. 12 books of history. Joshua, enter. Judges, judge. Ruth, sad, happy. 1st and 2nd Samuel, struggle. 1st and 2nd Kings, king. 1st and 2nd Chronicles, summary. Ezra, arrive. Nehemiah, wall. Esther, queen. 5 books of wisdom. Job, suffer. Psalms, poetry. Proverbs, general. Ecclesiastes, purpose. Song of songs, love. 5 books of major prophets. Isaiah, new. Jeremiah, judgment. Lamentations, destruction. Ezekiel, throne. Daniel, lion. 12 books of minor prophets. Hosea, cheat. Joel, call. Amos, seek. Obadiah, consequence. Jonah, big fish. Micah, justice. Nahum, punish. Habakkuk, amaze. Zephaniah, purify. Haggai, choices. Zechariah, return. Malachi, future. Okay, good job. Are you ready for today's Bible story? Listen carefully. This story is from the Bible, God's holy word. Mordecai was Queen Esther's much older cousin who raised Esther like his own daughter. Esther obeyed Mordecai and never told anyone that she was a Jew. Now Mordecai hung around the king's gate so that he could find out how Esther was doing. One day, while he was at the king's gate near the palace courtyard, Mordecai overheard 2 of the king's officials plotting to assassinate King Ahasuerus. Mordecai immediately reported the plot to kill the king to Queen Esther, and she told the king on Mordecai's behalf. When the report was investigated and verified, both men were hanged on the gallows. In the king's historical record, it was recorded that Mordecai stopped the plot to kill the king. Okay, who was Esther's much older cousin who raised her like his own daughter? Mordecai. And Mordecai overheard 2 of the king's officials plotting something. What were they plotting? To kill the king. And what happened to the 2 men after Queen Esther told the king about what they were planning? They were hanged on the gallows. And what was recorded in the king's historical record? That Mordecai stopped the plot to kill the king. Well, Haman was one of King Ahasuerus' officials, and the king promoted Haman, making him his highest official. He was second in command to the king. And the king commanded everyone to bow down and honor Haman. So every time Haman walked through the king's gate, everyone there was to bow down to him. But Mordecai, as a Jew, refused to bow down and honor Haman. Mordecai would only bow down to the Lord God. Mordecai explained to the royal staff that as a Jew, he could not bow down to any man. Haman was filled with rage when he found this out. And when he learned that Mordecai was a Jew, Haman planned to not only destroy Mordecai, but destroy all the Jews in the kingdom, to kill them all. Haman went to the king and he said, there is a group of people scattered throughout the kingdom who do not obey the king's laws. Haman asked for his permission to authorize for these people to be killed. Okay, so who did the king promote to be his highest official and commanded everyone to bow down to this man. Who was it? Haman. And who refused to bow down to Haman? Mordecai. And when Haman found out that Mordecai would not bow down to him and that he was a Jew, what did Haman plan to do to all the Jews in the kingdom? Destroy them all, kill them all. Well, the king gave Haman his signet ring, giving Haman the authority to make laws. And after Haman made this law that authorized the killing of the Jews, letters went out throughout the kingdom announcing the day when all the Jews would be killed. Mordecai and all the Jewish people throughout the kingdom cried out to God as they wept. Mordecai then sent word to Queen Esther and told her what was going on, and he urged Esther to ask King Ahasuerus to stop the destruction of the Jews, to keep the Jews from being killed. Well, of course, Esther was burdened for her people. She was nervous to approach the king. You see, Esther was not allowed to go to the king unless he asked for her to come. And if the king did not welcome her by extending his gold scepter, then she would be killed. Well, Esther sent word back to Mordecai that she had not been summoned to come to the king in the last 30 days. In other words, it was unlikely that she would have a chance to talk to the king. And it could mean her death if he did not welcome her. Okay, who did the king give his signet ring to that gave him the authority to make any laws? Haman. And what did Mordecai urge Esther to do? To ask the king to stop the destruction of the Jews. And what would happen to Esther if she went to the king and he did not welcome her by extending his gold scepter? She would be killed. Well, Mordecai sent this message to Esther. Don't think that you will escape death because you live in the king's palace. If you keep silent, deliverance will come to the Jewish people from another place, but you and your people will be destroyed. Mordecai said that Esther had a choice. She could be silent or speak up. But if she chose to be silent, God would deliver the Jews some other way. Mordecai said the following very important statement. He said, "Who knows? Perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this." In other words, perhaps God put Esther in this position of being queen at this time so that she could intervene for the Jewish people. Listen to what Mordecai said again. Who knows? Perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Okay, so what did Mordecai say to Esther? What are those 6 words? Who knows? Perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Well, Esther sent a reply to Mordecai. She told Mordecai to gather all the Jews in Susa and have them fast and pray for her for 3 days. Esther and her servants also committed to not eat anything day or night for those 3 days and spend that time praying. Esther said, "I will go to the king, and if I perish, I perish." Now, perish means to die. So Esther was saying, if I die, I die. Esther was willing to die. Okay, how many days did Esther tell Mordecai that they all should fast and pray? 3 days. And Esther said, "I will go to the king, and if I what? I what? What did she say? Starts with a P. If I perish, I perish." Well, on the 3rd day, Esther dressed up in her nicest clothes and her royal clothes and went towards the king. And the king was happy to see Queen Esther, and he extended his gold scepter towards her. God answered their prayers. And instead of asking immediately for the king to save the Jews, Esther requested the king and Haman to come to the banquet that she had prepared, and they gladly went. And there at Esther's first banquet for the king and Haman, The king told Esther to ask for whatever she wanted, up to half the kingdom. And Esther said, "Please come to another banquet tomorrow, and I will tell you then." Haman went home that day in a great mood. But when Haman saw Mordecai refusing to bow down to him, his mood quickly changed. Haman was then filled with rage. He went home and told his family and friends how Queen Esther had invited only him to join the king for her banquet that day, and that he was invited again for another banquet tomorrow. Then Haman said that he can't be happy, though, because of Mordecai. Haman's wife and friends told Haman to have 75 feet tall gallows built and asked the king to hang Mordecai on them. Haman went ahead and ordered for those gallows to be built. Okay, what did the king extend towards Esther that showed that he was welcoming her? His gold scepter. And Esther did not immediately ask the king to stop this law that ordered the killing of the Jews. Instead, she invited the king and Haman to attend a what? A banquet. And what did Esther ask for at her first banquet for the king and Haman? What did she ask for? For the king and Haman to attend another banquet the next day. Haman was so happy that he was the only one besides the king invited to Esther's banquets. But who did he see that put him in a terrible mood? Mordecai. And what did Haman's wife and friends tell Haman to build for Mordecai? Gallows to hang Mordecai on. Well, that night, the king could not sleep. So he ordered for the king's historical record to be read aloud to him. And when the king heard how Mordecai had stopped the plot to kill the king, King Ahasuerus wanted to do something to honor Mordecai. So that morning when Haman came in, the king asked Haman, what should be done for the man the king wants to honor? Well, Haman thought the king must be talking about him. So Haman said, put a royal robe and a crown on him, and parade him around on the king's horse, shouting, "This is what is done for the man the king wants to honor." The king said, "That's perfect. Hurry and do just that for Mordecai the Jew." Now imagine how Haman felt. The man that he wanted to ask the king to have hanged on the gallows that day was now the man that Haman had to parade around town announcing, "This is what is done for the man the king wants to honor." Okay, while the king couldn't sleep, he learned that Mordecai had done what? Stopped the plot to kill the king. And who did Haman think the king wanted to honor? He thought he wanted to honor him. He thought he wanted to honor Haman. And who did Haman have to clothe and parade around as he yelled, "This is what is done for the man the king wants to honor"? Mordecai. Well, it was then time for King Ahasuerus and Haman to go to Queen Esther's second banquet. And Esther said to the king, "If I have found favor in your eyes, your majesty, and if the king is pleased, spare my life and spare my people. For my people and I have been sold to destruction, death, and extermination." Well, King Ahasuerus asked her, "Who devised this evil plan?" And Esther said, "The evil Haman." Well, the king was so angry with Haman that he had to walk away. Haman threw himself on Queen Esther as he begged her to save his life. And when the king returned and saw that, he ordered for Haman to be hanged on the 70 feet tall gallows that Haman had built for Mordecai. Then the king gave Mordecai his signet ring so that Mordecai could write a law that allowed the Jews to defend themselves and kill anyone who tried to attack them. So on the day when the enemies of the Jews had hoped to overpower the Jews, just the opposite happened. The Jews overpowered those who hated them. The Jews killed all their enemies. And Mordecai the Jew became second only to King Ahasuerus. He took Haman's job. Okay, at Esther's second banquet for the king and Haman, Esther asked the king to spare her life and the life of her people. Who did Esther say devised this evil plan? Haman. And where was Haman hanged? On the gallows that he had built for Mordecai. And who overpowered those who hated them? The Jews. And who became second only to King Ahasuerus? Mordecai. Well, this story reminds me of what Joseph said to his brothers who had sold him as a slave. Joseph said to them, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." God put Esther in place as queen for such a time as this. And God turned the evil plans against Mordecai and the Jews and turned them completely around. Mordecai was honored the way Haman wanted to be honored. And Haman was hanged on the gallows that he had built for Mordecai. And Mordecai took over Haman's position as second in command. And the plot to kill the Jews ended up being the opportunity for the Jews to get rid of their enemies. All this shows God's power and authority to bring good out of man's evil plans. When the law to kill the Jews was put in place, the situation seemed hopeless. But with God, there is always hope, because God loves to rescue and save all those who turn to Him. If you are in a situation that seems hopeless, turn to God. Surrender to Jesus. Allow God to direct your life and trust in God's timing. He can restore hope to your life. Okay? Are you ready for your 10 questions? Just hit the pause button if you need a little bit more time after each question. Question 1. The king promoted Haman to be his highest official and commanded everyone to bow down to Haman. But who refused to bow down to him? Time, Mordecai. Question 2. When Haman found out that Mordecai would not bow down to him and that he was a Jew, what did Haman plan to do to all the Jews in the kingdom? Time, destroy all the Jews or kill all the Jews. 3. Who did the king give his signet ring to that first time so that he had the authority to make any laws? Time, Haman. Question 4. If Esther went to the king and he did not welcome her, she would be killed. What did Mordecai say to Esther? Who knows, perhaps you have come to your royal position for what? Give me those last 6 words. Time, for such a time as this. Okay. Question 5. Esther did not immediately ask the king to stop this law that ordered the killing of the Jews. Instead, she invited the king and Haman to attend what? Time, a banquet. Number 6. What did Haman's wife and friends tell Haman to build for Mordecai? Time, gallows to hang Mordecai on. Number 7. Who did Haman have to clothe and parade around as he yelled, "This is what is done for the man the king wants to honor"? Time, Mordecai. Number 8. At Esther's second banquet for the king and Haman, Esther asked the king to spare her life and the life of her people. Who did Esther say devised this evil plan? Time, Haman. And question 9. Where was Haman hanged? Time, on the gallows that Haman had built for Mordecai. Last question, question 10. The Jews overpowered those who hated them. And who became second only to King Ahasuerus? Time, Mordecai. Okay, how many did you get right? Now multiply that by 10 and that's your score. Now I have 2 assignments for you. I want you to go read Esther chapters 3 and 4 and then go tell someone what you learned today. Come back for our next video in our Teach Me the Bible Story series. See you next time.